All right, so implementation of discussion at first reading. So I drafted just a first proposal for how this could work, including procedure for first readings and then how to take the item up again for second readings. So I don't know if we can get that displayed or maybe it's not necessary. So there would be a first reading motion to introduce the legislation, then a vote to introduce the legislation. The clerk, as has been our practice for a long time, the clerk reads the title and synopsis, then there's a vote to adopt. Then there will be a staff presentation, council member questions, public comment, and here's where we need to think about this. My proposal was to limit that public comment to 30 minutes. And then I said no council member discussion, but I've talked to Council President Asari since then, and he was thinking that it would be beneficial to have council member discussion or comments, especially if people are thinking of amendments.
I agree.
And then there would be a motion to postpone. So I'd love to hear feedback, and I think council staff may have some feedback on this as well. So
Yes, I thought about this in preparation for today's meeting, and I think there are various ways that this can be structured. One option is to take the framework that you just presented, but to incorporate an alternative to committee of the whole within the main motion to adopt. There was some discussion about the committee of the whole during the last council meeting. It's kind of an awkward creature under Robert's rules. It's really designed for very large bodies. And there has been some guidance from the public access counselor expressing concerns about noticing it committee of the whole under the open door law. But there is an alternative to it in Robert's rules, which is designed more for smaller bodies like council, and it's called informal consideration. So at the point where the motion to adopt the main motion is adopted, there could, and if that passes, then there could be a motion to consider informally. The president could kind of prompt that topic by saying something to the effect of, I'd like to consider this informally, or is somebody interested in making a motion to consider this informally? And then that presents a more relaxed way of discussing the matter too.
Would that include, sorry, my mind is blanking. Is that, Jesus, okay, let's keep going. And I'll let you know if I can come up with it. It just left my mind as soon as I had the opportunity.
always.
So a council member at that point could move that the question be considered informally. And then,
I'm sorry.
and then at that point, if there's a staff presentation, there could be council members, then questions, etc. And then when that is concluded, or when at such time that a council member feels that it's time to move on, then a council member could make a motion to conclude the informal consideration.
So then, if nobody makes that motion to consider informal consideration, that means we're just not gonna discuss it. If we don't have anything to discuss, we can keep moving on.
Exactly.
I like that. Because that was gonna be my question about this whole thing. Is this opening up to us falling into a trap of always discussing everything?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right.
So wait, I want to make sure I understand what Attorney Lehner was saying. So this would be would the motion to move to for informal consideration, would that occur after the motion to introduce the legislation?
Yeah, so it would work exactly as you stated, motion to introduce and read, just like is done now. Motion to adopt,
Mhm.
and then the motion, to consider informally is a subsidiary motion.
So it would be number 3, instead of motion to adopt legislation, it'd be motion to consider informally.
Is that right?
No, there would still be, number 3, and then the motion to consider informally would be between 3 and 4.
Okay, why would we need a motion to adopt if we're just going to consider informally?
Well, and that potentially is, another option. There could be a motion to discuss or to consider. I think that potentially that could stand as a main motion. And then, staff presentation, council member discussion, public comment, what have you. And then potentially a motion to, move the matter to second reading. Or in the alternative, you know, you wanna keep options open so that if there is a situation or like an urgent need to approve something at first reading, somebody could make, a motion for unanimous to consider the ordinance for adoption during first reading. So maybe try to envision this as a flow chart where at different steps, there may be branches with options, depending upon how council members want to proceed. You know, my only hesitation with the motion to discuss or to consider is, you know, maybe Clerk Bolden, you have, you know, something to add to this, whether that would stand as a main motion to support the discussion in that event.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add on that.
Can you speak up a little, sorry?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay.
So you wanna leave room for a motion to unanimously move the item?
That would be after there is discussion. I mean, the one potential benefit of this motion to consider informally is it is informal. So there wouldn't necessarily have to be like time restrictions that apply to council member comments, for example. I think 1 or 2 council members during the last meeting, expressed, you know, support for having an informal discussion, like what was happening with committee of the whole. So that might be one benefit of the first option I described.
I'm worried that the more flexibility we give to council, the more confusion we create for both the public and for the staff who might potentially have to present the legislation. I mean, if they get all ready to present and take their, you know, arrange their childcare and whatever, and they're there, and then we decide, oh, we don't need to discuss it first reading. That's.
Agreed, I thought about that, but what my thought was, I think. Well, maybe we'd have to. I think we would know ahead of time, or a council member would know ahead of time if they wanted to have the discussion. Yeah, I guess. So in my brain, the way I was envisioning it, which saying it out loud isn't quite as clean as I saw it in my brain, was. We would look at something, we would kind of know ahead of time if we wanted to discuss something, and then we would let staff know.
Can you stop putting your pen?
Oh, I do, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, put it away.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That we would kind of informally know on our own ahead of time. Like, we sense what the bigger topics are that we're gonna be wanting to talk about, you know, and then other ones, I think we kind of know as a body too, which ones aren't gonna be a big deal versus which ones are. So then we would give notification to staff that, hey, we plan to talk about it. But then I guess we would want to implement a deadline for when we officially have that, which does complicate it. I get
Well,
that.
I think it would have to be on the agenda, noted somehow that we expect a discussion of this item, so
That's fair.
not just the staff, but the public also.
That's fair.
You know, and I think this will be a process of, you know, testing certain things and then deciding what works, but to the point we were just discussing, I think, the president could make some decision and potentially prepare a memo before the meeting, like as to what maybe some expectations were, because some decision will need to be made so that staff know whether they should be present
Yeah.
at first reading, and I think there, it also raises the question, do you want city staff then to be present at both first reading and second reading? Or is first reading largely going to be like the new second reading, and that's where staff make the presentation, questions are asked? And then maybe there's not the expectation that they be present for second reading also?
Well, the whole point of kind of first and second reading is that, you know, we have the opportunity to ask questions without bringing it to a vote immediately.
Exactly.
And then, like, if we don't get those questions in writing, then really our only opportunity to hear it as a full body is at the next meeting. And so, like, unless staff would be willing to provide like a full memo on like all the questions that were asked in advance. Those are our two options, because
So,
that was kind of the intention.
so during first reading, council members could ask questions. After, staff presentation, the staff then could take those questions. And then provide answers. By a particular deadline, back to council members, let's say by the Friday before the second reading meeting. Those answers could be provided by staff to council members, and they could also go into the packet for the next meeting. That could be an option as well.
Some questions might take more than 2 days to answer.
No, I'm thinking, well, this assumes that there are like 2 weeks. Or more between the two, for 2 meetings.
But are any of us like willing to take a vote on something that we can't ask questions the night of?
No, I think staff has to be there.
I would agree. I don't think there's a way around that.
Okay.
And just to go back, because you mentioned committee of the whole, and that this idea of informal consideration could take the place of what we used to do with committee of the whole. As council member here who was on council when we did committee of the whole, I have to tell you, it was just as formal as any other meeting. It's not like we all sat in a circle and bounced ideas off each other. It was like, raise your hand, yes, council member so-and-so, go ahead, now council member, you know.
It's not the formality of the process that's tripping me up. It's I've never been comfortable with the idea that we vote right after we ask our questions and have our conversation, you know? I mean, I know we can ask questions ahead of time, but deeper things get unlocked and dug up when I hear my colleagues asking questions and I hear their line of thinking. Like, oh, I wouldn't have thought of it that way, you know? So that's why I really support a discussion at first reading.
So Hopi,
I'm really, really sorry, that I was at an MPO meeting that is still going on, actually. So are we debating whether or not there should be just council member questions or council member comments, or what exactly is the question on the table about how this should be?
So just presenting two different options on, possibilities for.
Oh, there's two different options, not just.
Well,
the
actually,
packet.
three, no, probably more. I mean,
There's so many.
Yeah, I see, well,
Okay, what is the concern right now that people are?
Committee of the whole versus like informal discussion.
No, I mean, I don't think anybody's talking about bringing committee to hold that.
I don't want that.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, so I think what Lisa was saying is, so if we look at our list here for first reading, after a motion to adopt legislation, somebody could move to consider it under informal consideration.
Yeah,
Which is a thing in Robert's rule.
there could be, a motion to consider the question.
So like instead of a motion to adopt, we could move to consider it under.
No, a motion for informal consideration is a subsidiary motion, so there would still be the motion to adopt as the main motion first.
What's the difference between, procedure if you have informal consideration versus just the motion to adopt?
Well,
We already covered this.
No,
the motion to consider informally doesn't stand on its own. It needs a main motion.
Right, but in terms of how the discussion would go, how would that be different?
Well, if there's a motion to adopt and then discussion, then arguably there's a need to be more formal in terms of like time limits potentially on council member comments, et cetera. The motion to consider informally is kind of, it's like committee as a whole, in that there are relaxed procedures.
So then we're discussing amongst us whether we like that idea, is that what's happening?
well, and how we can make it feasible for staff to know and the public to know whether there will be discussion at first reading or whether they won't.
Right.
So coming into this, I didn't even think about, oh, maybe there are times when we don't want it because it's a straightforward thing.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
we need to make sure everybody knows that.
But how do we decide that ahead of time and all?
Yeah, is that something that has a president would decide? Well, I think,
We could also like ask, hey, was there anyone who was planning on speaking on this? Like, during the meeting?
ask the public.
Well,
Well, and I
is the concern then like the idea that we could on first reading just motion to introduce as we normally do and then not have any discussion over it? And then if there's somebody from the public who wanted to discuss it, then that doesn't leave space for public comment? Like, I mean, I guess I could just imagine like it going like this and it being something, say, like pretty basic from the controller's office and. You know, the controller maybe would have to be there, or maybe wouldn't, or maybe, you know, have a 2-line memo, like this is what this does, and. We often don't have any comment on those sorts of things anyway, or questions on those sorts of things anyway, so it'd be like, do council members have concerns or questions for this, and then if you don't, does the public have any comment for this, and then that allows the public comment, but maybe, I mean, just because we as council members can ask the question or make the comment doesn't mean that we have to. I'm not sharing.
Go ahead,
I was
Clerk.
waiting for you to stop talking. I was waiting for her to look over at me, but I was listening to you, which is why you got the hard
Yeah.
eyeball.
It's just your faces.
So. In the past, when you guys have had discussions where you wanted to have that discussion on first reading, or if you were anticipating something unusual in terms of presentation, you've usually indicate, or you have indicated, like on the agenda or in the packet in some way to notify the public, like, hey, we are anticipating some level of discussion here. So part of it doesn't have to necessarily be in your process. It can just be in the way you communicate to them and establish some basic, we're gonna talk about this. We're gonna talk a lot about it. We're gonna have a whole bunch of questions we're gonna ask of staff. And if you have any questions, make sure you bring them here. You can do it through your packet. You can also do it through your separate channels, your Substacks and your social media, your skywriting.
MailChimp.
Hmm?
MailChimp.
Whatever
Forget
you
about my
want.
newsletter.
I don't know. But I think some of that is just, you know, when you're talking about staff not knowing or members of the public not knowing, part of it is incumbent upon us to tell them beyond just process.
Yeah.
Which I know,
I mean, because we could, my assumption after that legislation that we passed last week was that essentially everything for first reading now is gonna have the potential of a discussion, is gonna have some measure of presentation. And the potential for public comment. And that everything is gonna be like that, and so then it, especially if it is communicated to the public, like, even with an asterisk. And maybe maybe we can just put asterisks on everything that could potentially be discussed, like. This could be discussed, this could be discussed, this could be discussed in terms of all of that legislation. And I mean, come on, we know. The public knows, everybody knows, staff knows, when there's gonna be, the mayor knows. When there's gonna be something on the agenda that is interesting, that is some kind of like, you know.
Sometimes things that seem routine, one colleague may find something that is problematic that I didn't think of. I also looked at it the way that Hopi did, and I actually I don't see a problem with just saying, we're gonna have discussion. As much discussion as, we're gonna allow discussion at first reading for everything. And then just say, oh, they have no questions. Go to the public, they have no questions. Go to the comment, we have no comments.
That's true.
Right, just
Yeah.
automatically assume there's gonna be a presentation for everything at first reading.
And that might make things more just like clear to the public
That's
in
what I
terms
was
of like expectations. I'm coming, this is what I can expect.
Right. And I mean, it doesn't have to be long, and that's where, like, when I was looking at this, I was like, do we wanna put time limits on all of these things? Like, that's what I literally have written down, like, do we want a staff presentation at first reading to be really short? Or maybe we want a staff presentation at second reading to be really short, and at first reading to be longer. Do we want, I mean, right now, we have no limits on council member questions at second reading, but do we wanna put those on at first reading? What I want to avoid, which I said last time, was I want to avoid two very long and very similar periods of debate, of questions, of comments, of public comments, like,
Well, questions, I think that
well, no, it's repeated, it's the same, it's like the same questions, the same, like.
well, hopefully the council members will get their questions answered, that's the point, yes.
Lots of fingers.
We could also we could do the same style of questions that we do during budget season. Where every council member has a certain amount of time to ask all of their questions, and then if you don't get them in. Feel free to submit them in writing, because you will have another opportunity to get those questions answered.
And I would also, one of the things that I was thinking, in some of these first reading things, a piece of information that I might really wanna know isn't necessarily a question I have of staff, but a question I have of colleagues. Like, I read this, I'm not sure how I feel about this thing, I'm thinking of amending it in this way. Colleagues, tell me what you think about this, because then it's like, should I take this time and do this amendment that may or may not have agreement, and then that saves me time of trying to call at least, 4 or 5 other people in support of this amendment that I'm gonna do. And so I wasn't sure, I was questioning the no council member discussion, because then it's like, well, like, and so maybe that's like, well, we have 3 minutes of council member questions or discussion or comments. Because sometimes it's just a comment too, like I was actually specifically thinking about the Hopewell thing going, I don't think I have a question right now, but I have a concern. But it's not a question, and so it's like, I kind of like, how am I gonna address this? Because it doesn't easily fit into this.
I think it would fall under council member questions.
Well,
There's
in
something
theory
for
it
me
would,
to ask.
but we don't have to put, I guess what I'm saying is that when we have this procedure, it's documented at the meetings, so saying council member questions, it's council member questions and comment.
Sure.
And,
Minutes apiece.
3 minutes apiece, including any kind of response that we're asking for from staff.
Wait, so. We had, before you arrived, Toby, we had already questioned no council member discussion.
Right.
I said I had spoken with. Councilmember Asari, and he also thought we should have a discussion because of possible amendments and such. So are you saying if, I think you raised an interesting point, like after the staff presentation and some questions, if I say, hey, I'm thinking of this amendment, what do y'all think? Does that go under council member questions? Because it's not a question for staff. Or it could go under discussion.
I think it's
I
more
mean, it's more
discussion.
discussion, right?
Yeah,
It's not a council member comment, but it is.
I think one of the benefits of the way that it goes directly from public comment to a motion to postpone is that then council members don't get in the weeds potentially responding to public comment. So that's where I like Sydney's idea of going, well, it's like we do a budget time. We have these 3 minutes, each of us have these 3 minutes after the staff presentation to do whatever we want. Whether it's inquire, make inquiries with staff, make inquiries of each other, put comments out into the void and say, these are the things I'm thinking, like, I'm interested in your, like, I mean, if I'm the first speaker and I say, and if I know going into it, I'm like, I really want to hear from my colleagues about this thing. Then I might go, hey, I wanna be the first speaker, because after everybody, like, when everybody else takes their turn, I would love to know a quick, like, yeah, I'm kind of interested in that, I think that's a terrible idea, I don't know, I wanna hear more about it. In terms of the details, cause that, I mean, I'm not gonna eat up a ton of that 3-minute time, but. So I like that idea of calling it 3 minutes, whatever you want, and then go to public comment and then immediately go to the motion to postpone.
Yeah, I think the other thing is like, since public comment is 30 minutes, I, 9 times 3, 27. With transition time, it's about 30 minutes. I like that we're on, I know, I
I think 3
recognize.
minutes is not enough for council
I think at first reading it should be.
members. I like 5 minutes. 45 minutes is not.
As long as second reading ends up being shorter.
Yeah.
Right.
We can always try, okay, my compromise is to try it at 5 minutes, and if it gets obnoxiously long, then we trim it down.
Which theoretically then we're, in this plan. Any lingering questions that we have, we're putting in writing, and then we're getting those addressed for second reading. So that should, in theory, cut down second reading time.
In theory.
In theory.
In theory.
Maybe we
Lots
could
of
just
theory.
set like a 6-month check-in. If we do 5 minutes, in 6 months, the same body can reevaluate, hey, is this working, is it not working?
I suspect if it's not working, we'll all know before 6 months.
I suspect that as well. You never know.
Yes.
So the 5 minutes that you're discussing, that would begin with council's next meeting.
Yes.
First reading.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and we would need to clarify that it's 5 minutes all in one go,
Yes.
like we do a
Questions
budget.
and comments.
Right, and that once you have had your 5 minutes, you're done.
Right.
If you only
can't
use
reserve
2 minutes,
2 minutes.
like, I'm sorry,
Yeah, that's.
cause that's too much for staff to keep track of, that's
Yeah,
not.
that's not fair.
So then, just following through with your example. Then when the discussion is complete, somebody would make a motion to postpone the matter to a date certain.
After the public comment, yeah. So after public comment, back to council, the president would say like, okay, see no more public comment, back to council for a motion.
Yeah.
And then it would probably be the parliamentarian who makes all the other motions. To motion to postpone to the next regular session. We have to, in that motion to postpone to the next regular session, right? Or okay.
Yeah, and then, so then at the second reading, are you envisioning motion to introduce and read? Again, so with the second reading.
I think we
No,
have
actually,
to,
we have to,
no, we have to motion to.
or, yeah,
introduce, yeah.
but, I mean, the presiding chair, in that case, I guess the president would take up the postponed motion. And then the second reading would need to occur, within that space too. I don't know that there would need to be a motion to read it again.
That's what we've always done though.
Put that up in Robert's rules, and you don't need a new motion.
Okay, even though we've always, that's what we've always done at this point, like if something from second reading gets postponed to third reading, then we always introduce it again at the third reading time.
And I guess that's, I don't know that there's anything wrong with continuing this. I mean, this is not Indiana law.
Right,
Robert's rules are not.
right,
See,
So,
only if we have a new motion. We open it up to a roll call vote on the motion and it could be stymied
like the motion to introduce.
to introduce a second time. I'm not saying any colleague would do that, but it opens that door in case somebody wants to postpone it again. Or,
I mean, it might save time if for any reason, like staff wasn't able to provide answers in time. And like there were important questions that we would asked. That might be one, opportunity that we would have to continue it.
although you could do that after the
Yeah,
second round. of
That's true
discussion.
too, but I guess I more meant like for time's sake, if, we needed, if like we know automatically, hey, we're not gonna be able to vote on this tonight, X, Y, Z needs to be addressed. It might just save us some, but.
Because the motion to introduce is debatable, if there's that issue, then anybody can say. That around.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Which
that's true.
we don't always do, but I mean, we did that last year.
Yeah, good.
you know, another option that I flushed out also was to do. Start with the motion to introduce and read. A motion to discuss, which then would be seconded and voted on. And then do the discussion or whatever. And then, a motion to move to second reading. Or if a vote wanted to be, if a council member desired that it be voted upon at first reading. A motion for unanimous consideration. Or consent to consider the ordinance for adoption at first reading. So that's.
I like that way better.
Where,
Well,
would
here's
that
my
be?
question with that, Hobie, I mean, can the motion to discuss be a main motion?
I don't know, I think so.
So,
So it would be in procedure of first reading, so it's the motion to introduce and read and the clerk reads, and then instead of having a motion to adopt, we have a motion to discuss. Which is a different, I like it because it's a different signal to the public. That we're not gonna adopt this tonight, we're gonna talk about it. And then everything stays the same, except instead of postponing, we're motioning to move it to second reading.
well, if the motion to discuss passes, it's.
Right.
What is a motion to go to second reading?
It's just saying that it goes to second reading,
Yeah.
or maybe like move to second reading on a specific date. It's one, we don't usually do that because it kind of automatically goes to second reading in our process. It's very similar to a motion to postpone, except that when we postpone, we're doing that attached to adopting legislation. Because in the motion to adopt, we've already said we're gonna adopt it, so that when we're postponing a decision about adopting. But if we're only discussing, then at the end of the discussion, then we have to say, okay, when are we gonna take up this legislation again? Well, we're gonna move it on to second reading. I feel like that differentiates it more from what a second reading does, which is a motion to adopt.
What do you all think?
I would agree.
So. Do you have any comments on
No, I'm just confused, sorry.
it?
Because at the beginning, we talked about motion to adopt and then, you know, motioning for informal discussion or whatever, so I'm getting these mixed now. Now I'm confused about the flow chart.
Well, I think that, because it's the motion for informal discussion or informal consideration has to be underneath another motion. So you can't
Right.
motion for informal consideration directly, but
Right.
you can motion for discussion correctly. So discussion would have to follow all the other, like Robert's rules formalities, which is how our discussion normally does. But we're discussing instead of actually considering a question. So at the end of it, so when we have a motion to adopt, it's like, we have to vote on that motion. like, there's like a motion on the table that we have to vote on.
I see.
And a motion to discuss, there's
Is-
nothing that we
A
vote.
motion to
at the end of
discuss
that.
is different from a motion to consider informally.
Right,
That would be the flow of that.
right. So like we could,
Okay.
cause the informal discussion has to be underneath, it has to be like a layer.
Yeah.
Like it's a flow chart thing, it's like.
Right.
It's been inserted under something else, you can't have it stand by itself.
It's just so wonky.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but the motion to discuss you, it can stand by itself.
okay. So why would
We
we,
do like, you know,
Right,
that's not a
yeah,
So
potential, I guess that could be.
so why would we what?
why would we go, okay, motion to discuss, that passes, motion to consider informal.
No, we wouldn't put that on, it would just be a motion to discuss.
Motion to discuss
And
or
then we would
motion to
discuss.
adopt.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
All right,
we need a flow chart.
I feel dense right now, I'm very sorry. Okay, I get it, good. cut
Oh,
off.
yeah, there's a whiteboard.
So where does that leave us in terms of if there is a situation where we want to vote on a document, or on a legislation
Could
at
we,
first reading?
could we not move to adopt post discussion?
Yes, that's what, I was gonna put that flow chart, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's-
It for you.
No, that's what I would say,
That
is
makes
that then we would have the
sense.
discussion
There
and
could
then,
be a motion to end that discussion and then move on to like that branch where the motion, or that question is moved to a second reading, or there's a
Move to
motion
adopt.
for unanimous, because you need the motion for unanimous consent at the first reading in order to even vote on it.
alright, but that could be like, so this would be like,
Motion for unanimous consent would have to come first.
yeah,
Before
but
the.
that would be like after public comment, so it's, I'm gonna have to put this on the board.
Would it be, I move to suspend the rules and allow the council to vote on this tonight?
I don't think the motion would be to be suspended. I think the vote could occur as long as there's unanimous consent first,
Okay.
and then the 2/3 vote on the actual ordinance.
So what would the motion look like though? Like I move for unanimous consent to consider this tonight?
Yeah, I think it would be something to the extent of, I move for unanimous consent to consider the ordinance for adoption tonight.
Okay.
So I do want to check in with the mayor about this because this change leads to twice that staff have to be here. Answer questions of use of words, which is something we used to do under the previous years. But, you want to weigh in on any concerns about that?
Yeah, we do have fairly significant concerns about the expectation that staff be there twice, especially, well, twice period. But especially for these sort of prolonged on the spot questioning and public comment periods on deliberation. So I guess part of the question is, does the council believe that it would be the exception to the rule that there would be a motion for unanimous consent to move forward to the vote? Or would it be standard to go to second and have another full discussion at second? Because right now, we expect to be at one council meeting, and with exceptions, we go to two. You have first reading and then it ends up going to 3 meetings. But this seems to pivot it to be, we always come to 2. And that's concerning. We're maxed out and it's not gonna get better. In terms of staff time, it's not gonna get better because we've already said we can't hire any new staff with SEA warrant, at least through, definitely through 27, but likely 28.
Well, to answer your question, and please correct me if I'm wrong, other committee members, I think that it is the assumption that it would have 2 readings.
Then staff would be present.
First staff to be present.
Because of the way that things were written on the board,
That's right.
is it okay if I go stand over there so
Absolutely.
that Al picks it up and I'll read
Absolutely.
through them quickly?
And let me say, like, this is my understanding of what it is that I heard in a very short kind of.
Yeah, it's hard to read.
What you
It
had
really
first
is.
was a motion to introduce.
Right.
A second motion to read by title and synopsis only.
No, that's all in one. And I was mimicking what is in the packet. So
Okay.
first it's read, or first it's motion to introduce, and then it's read by the clerk.
And so you're saying a motion to introduce and to read by title and synopsis,
Right.
which stick a pin in that.
Right.
After it's read, there will be a motion to discuss or a motion to adopt.
Right,
If there's a motion to adopt, you could have informal consideration.
yeah.
I can't read your writing very well, sorry.
Staff presentation, because that's what's,
Okay.
that's what's in the packet.
Fourth is staff presentation, council member question and comment,
Right,
and then public comment.
right.
And
If we have a motion to discuss,
if there's a motion to discuss, then there's a motion to second reading or a motion
to unanimous consent,
to unanimous consent.
yes,
You were writing fast.
I was.
Okay.
And if it was motion to adopt, then we would have to motion to postpone.
Yes.
Does that help?
I think so.
Cause it's like 2 alternate flow charts and like which one do we wanna do?
I think we can do something like this in some form where it's typed up, where people can see it.
Yeah,
Okay.
So, committee members, how do you think, how are you thinking about the impact on staff?
Sorry, what was the question? Impact on staff.
Yeah.
I think that it doesn't make sense for us to vote on things that we can't get answers to same night. I would like to figure out some way to be like very, very clear to staff and respectful of everyone's time on like, hey, this is the time about where like this is going to be on the agenda. This is about how much time it's gonna take, like being able to provide that expectation for staff, I think would be able to help them prepare a little bit better. I would hope.
So yeah, for first reading, we can tell them, look, it'll be your presentation. However long that is, plus 45 minutes, plus 30 minutes. Max.
Yeah, and I think we can
Now,
even say like, presentation should be this long so that you can. You know, prepare to fit all of this information in. And then. Like, there's no new presentation, it's just a follow-up on all the questions that are asked during first reading.
Right, I said during second reading, the staff would present any new information, including answers to previously asked questions.
Yes. But I do see the potential for a lot of frustration, just in terms of. Hey, staff doesn't necessarily need to be here for 4 hours of. Discussion, so whether we could say like, hey, as soon as council comment and question period is over, like, you're good to go because we have public comment and then we're going to. Make a decision one way or the other, but there will be no more questions asked, I think. That might be another thing that would. Protect staff time a little bit, especially because when we have council questions and then public comment, and then we go back to council questions, there's. I think there's some confusion on like the staff point of view where it's like, well, how many times am I expected to get back up there?
That's true, they could leave after, so I have a question on that period.
And we might figure out. We might wanna limit. I know that we've been doing. Council questions and then public comment, and then council member questions and comment. If we wanted to, especially to protect staff time, we could limit that to just discussion, so that way we could, you know, get staff out of there.
And you mean at second reading now?
Yes, I do.
Oh, I see, with the idea being that we asked our questions at reading one, and we submitted our question, any lingering questions to be answered.
Yes.
So then we should not have any further questions by the time we get to,
Let's
Second.
go past public comment and back to council comment section. Like, I know that we've in past precedent have asked a lot of questions during that period. I think the amount of opportunities that we're going to open up for questions to be asked in first reading versus like the time period in between, that might be an opportunity, and it might be a nice compromise, because I do recognize that this is going to add a lot to staff time.
My concern specifically with that is that sometimes during public comment, the
Mhm.
public raise questions that we haven't thought about.
Yeah,
But
that's fair.
but nobody, you know,
But they may,
period, and
they may do that at first reading.
they may, but then they also may do it at second reading. Like, there might be an entirely different crop of people who comment with an entirely, and so that's, like, I just don't wanna limit that last part to. But I appreciate that, and I have other comments generally about staff resolution minutes.
Go ahead.
Are you thinking that there might be situations where you would want to introduce an amendment at first reading? Or simply discuss about possible amendments at second reading? You mean at first reading?
Oh, yeah,
No,
yeah.
I was thinking that at first reading, you could kind of gauge whether there's support for an amendment or not real
Consensus.
there's need for an amendment. And then that amendment could be written up and be.
Okay.
Any other feedback about staff time?
Yeah, I wanna say publicly I voted against this because I had concern that the administration and staff had not had enough input into how it would impact staff. I think that it would impact staff kind of a lot to have to give a full presentation at first reading and then have to present new information because it does necessitate a whole second slideshow. It does necessitate a whole, like, and that is a work process behind the scenes that we don't see that they have to do. So I guess. Once again, I voted no on this because I have a real hard time asking staff to come to 2 meetings, and I really have to wonder, if I read through the packet and I have questions at first reading stuff, and if and I just kind of leave them, and I guess I wanna strongly take into consideration, what Mayor Thompson just said about staff time and, about how stretched staff are. And throw out the possibility of not requiring them to be at first reading with their whole presentation, and for us as council members to raise questions or concerns that we have that they could watch later. You know, the next day they could come in and see that portion on CAT, so that then they don't have to sit through however long. And they can then gauge, okay, council members are concerned about this thing, and that only works if we are not voting on it at first reading. And so I guess that means, like, if there is something that seems like there might be unanimous consent to just get it done at first reading and out of the way, then we need to work with staff on that and give them a heads up to do that lengthy presentation. So I guess I would prefer staff presentation to be potentially optional at first reading. And so, because maybe it depends on the complexity of the legislation too. I mean, anything that might, you know, think about like some PUD from last year that might, you know, that went to 3 readings at 3, you know, to have. Maybe we could have done that too, if we had had the first, you know, because there were 2 times that staff had to come in and deal with it anyway, right? So when there's something particularly big or complex, then maybe say like, you know, we want that to happen, and that might help staff prepare for the fact that, you know, this is a big thing, it's gonna take these 2 meetings. Because otherwise, when we move something on the 3rd reading, it's almost like, oh, now I have to figure out my schedule for the next week, maybe I have to take a childcare, maybe I have to move something else, because all of a sudden now I have to be at this weekend night.
I do wanna say that I did reach out to the deputy mayor before we voted on this item of legislation last week. And she said, you know, the administration's aware of it and it would create some staff burdens, but we're not opposed. It always seems weird to me that there's kind of dead space in the first readings and complicated issues go to 3 anyway, so it may not result in more staff time. So I did think about this before I voted, and I did reach out to her and I was reassured, so. I don't know about if I would agree to what, Hopi just said. Without a presentation, so we would just be saying, I read it and here are my questions.
Yeah. I think
Yeah, I
like-
mean, I guess that's the thing, like, making maybe staff presentation. And it's-
Or I think for the second readings, we don't necessarily have to have a presentation for the second readings. You know, even if it's following up on the questions we had, there's no reason to have to put those into a slideshow. It could be, you know, they might get up there and say, you had these questions, here are my answers. Or,
I could also put it in the packet.
I was gonna say, or they just submit them in writing and they're in the packet.
Yeah.
And then maybe they're there just to answer any lingering questions that we might have when discussion comes up, but we're not putting them on the spot with the stress of a presentation.
I think it would make.
Yeah, I would be more likely to go that direction.
I think it would make more sense to have staff there, at least for the first one, just to be able to say, like. I don't wanna box us into where we're all sitting up on that dais and like, all of the questions that we have are based off of someone who can't be there to answer them.
Yeah. It's very awkward.
Yeah, so I guess I would preference, if we're going to pick one, maybe we could do, hey. Staff is here for night 1, and then there's. Questions are submitted in the packet, and then maybe someone could call in over Zoom. And answer those, and answer any supplemental questions, but then they're not sitting there for like 3 hours while we try to figure out. Well,
I was just gonna ask Mayor Thompson, what is y'all's kind of position on your staff, having those presentations on, virtually versus in person? Cause I feel like most of the time, most staff comes in person and it's only the consultants that do things by Zoom.
Yeah, yeah. I guess my recommendation would be that you have the in-person staff presentation and, significant questions at the first, and that it's optional or, you know, TBD on the second, depending on how many questions there are. That would address staff time. I have to go to another meeting, but my public comment was going to be, this is also going to bring up concern for public comment. I've already heard from people, which meeting should I go to? I don't wanna sit through 2 very long meetings to wait to, give my comment. Are they gonna forget that I commented in the first one, et cetera, et cetera? And so, I think some clear direction, and I mean, honestly, since there was no discussion at first reading anyway, you know, maybe a discussion among council about the, you know, how open they are to hearing these unanimous consent, but it's not an exception to the rule, that if there are things that really don't need to sit, that they can just get approved.
Yeah.
That's my public comments.
thank you.
Thank you.
So. Given that. Instead of limiting our council member questions and comments at first reading to the 3 or 5 minutes or whatever, should we do that at second step? And allow more time for comments or questions back and forth with staff, so that then those things are ironed out to a high degree.
Yeah.
So then going into second reading, staff can feel comfortable that being there virtually will be satisfactory in terms of their advocacy for their items.
Yeah, that was the debate I was having internally, which is if we're limiting it in the first round, well, then we always have moving to the written question and answer. If we're limiting it in the second round, though, because the time is limited, I mean, hopefully then,
Yeah,
the
but
theory
you
is
should-
we've ironed it all out the first
Right.
reading. There shouldn't be massive follow-up the second round.
Right.
Ideally.
That's the.
ideally. Or we go to a third reading, which nobody wants. I hear you, yeah, that was what I was weighing in my mind, so I was kind of on that same page. Maybe leaning the other way.
So I'm sorry, I think I missed the very first part of what you said, would be, instead of doing something at second reading, do it at first reading, what was that?
It's the other way around. I think it sounded like what I just heard Mayor Thompson say was that, she would prefer the first staff presentation to be the more robust one, and the second one for them to be able to potentially show up online and not have to do as much. And so if they're doing more for the first one, then instead of having council member question comment time limited on the first reading, we should be able to take as much time as we need to understand and have that time more limited at the second reading.
I think that makes sense.
Can I ask a process question right now? Like, how are we gonna present this for our meeting next week? Do we just have the one item for first reading and we don't have anything for second reading? Do we have any resolution?
No, it appears that there will be a resolution plus the first reading.
Okay.
What do we have for first reading?
Oh, wow.
Oh, right.
I guess the other thing that I think that we should do next week to make it really super duper clear to the public is that whatever process we follow next week is not a precedent for what might happen at the next meeting. And because I feel like there are way too many unanswered questions right now about how we should do this.
Yeah, I think I'm not gonna know until you start testing things.
But like that's another, like, I don't want the public to, show up and say, oh, well, you did it like this, so now you're gonna do it like this, I'm doing it. And I want a plan, but I also want the public to know that that plan might change.
Well, it's 1 o'clock, we have some other items on the agenda. What I could do is try to summarize, like the flow chart and, the comments about staff time and when to focus the staff time in the first reading. And, I could, draft a new proposal that I could send to individually committee members, and you could individually reply whether I captured everything. And then we could share that with the council president for a plan for March 4th, and then
Yeah, and I would say
see how that goes.
March 4th especially, since it's got Hopewell on it, that we shouldn't limit time on anything potentially if except for public comment in terms, because it's large and, there's. I talked with Anna Kelly and Hanson yesterday, there's concern about availability later in the month for the consultant. So if we can get the bulk of things out of the way, then there might be concerns or questions about that might enable that legislation to be treated differently.
Well, this committee won't meet again until possibly after the second March meeting, right? It depends, we need to discuss that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could do a draft, run it by all of you, and just pass it on to the council president as this is our draft for right now. We recommend using this for the time being, but we're still working on it, and we're also going to take feedback as to how things go using this draft.
Right, we may try it in part, certain portions, there we go, I found the words. Might pop out as, yeah, those don't work at all, we'll have to change this.
Does that sound okay?
I think the trial and error
Yeah,
method is fine, but as long as like we're communicating with the public, like Roby said, and saying, hey. This is
Yeah.
new
because
to
at the heart of it,
everyone.
we're trying to
Please.
get to the best rhythm for what works for everybody, and sometimes the only way you can do that is just testing it.
So in the packet for next Wednesday, I don't know if the agenda has already been I hope the agenda says something about there will be public discussion, there will be council discussion, public comment. Hold on.
I was going to ask, whether it would be, best to just clearly include that on the agenda. The agenda has been approved and we'll take it back to, President Asari, for confirmation if he's going to do it that way.
Thank you. Thanks. And then if we are limiting council member questions / comment in the second reading, are we doing it 3 minutes and 5 minutes?
That, I don't think that we should bother even talking about that right now, because we don't have anything up for second reading. And
Well, but
next
no,
week,
before we
right.
begin.
but then the next regular session after that, the only thing that we have up is Hopewell, and I'm not sure that I necessarily want to have Hopewell in that way either. I think it, yeah. I mean, I think that we also, I mean, what, we have that motion to suspend rules for a reason, so that when we know that we're faced with something that's like that we can do something different,
Yeah,
and, I mean, Hopewell's pretty big, so, I don't.
we suspended the rules on the Summit District PD as well, the structure of the debate.
Right, yeah,
Oh, geez.
yeah.
All right, let's go to the public. Are there and I do apologize to the public who are not in the room because we did have some things on a whiteboard that are
Oh,
hard to see, even when the camera was pointed there. But yes, let us, welcome public comment on what we just talked about, up to 3 minutes.
Well, yeah, I'm assuming you're gonna do somebody else first.
No, go ahead. Come on up to the,
Well, very, just to this point, East Street, but, first of all, as always, thank you. I love this committee because I think it's important to good governance, so thank you for your work. My only comment is oh, sorry, we'll never know. Carrie Anthony, my wife and I live in Bloomington. I like the direction that you're trying to do, and I don't know if this is your word or not, don't put words in your mouth, please, council. But options or something, you know, the option, you suggest the options for the council, I think that's a good idea. I'm mostly talking about the larger comments. I also think, the comment that was on the screen that's gone by now, that someone made named Eric, about the public understanding, there it is, how will the public understand? I just wanna say yes to that, that's important, it goes not just what they understand in the room about these arrangements, cross protocol, but beforehand as well. And may I say that, now may I say humbly, the education needs to extend to council members as well. Not just those that are here, but others as well. Any group of humans doing work together need to have some understanding, and the council members don't always seem to completely know what the protocols are for something new. So I'm just saying, that's part of education, in my one person's opinion. The only other thing I had a question about, at least more question, I'm gone. The informal deliberation, there's some, I think, discussion about what guides that a little bit. Beyond maybe a typical Robert's Rules of Order kind of thing. And you've had documents, one from me that I just happen to know about, which I don't privilege or prioritize, called Rosenberg Rules of Order. So I'm thinking the protocols that you adopt for those discussions will be interesting and educational and a benefit, because they may make that time you're setting aside. Last thing, just about first reading, second reading, what should we win? I can understand the dangers, even from outside where I sit to this, about the time elements. And so the thoughtful options of when you apply what you have is gonna be so important, which you already know. So you don't get into trouble with yourselves and everybody else, including the mayor. So, and my only other question was, and I'll go, is I didn't know whether at that stage where you can decide, okay, here's what we're gonna do. And I've lost track, and I'm not asked to talk about it now. But I don't know if somebody, that whole consensus thing, with the more public and whatever you're calling that these days, and I've lost track, as I admit. I'm teaching this semester, what is it called?
Deliberation session.
Thank you, I just lost track, I'm too busy right now. Can someone say that's where it should go at this stage? I don't even talk about it, I think, I'll let you get out of the next word. I just wasn't clear where you can bring that. There's probably a piece of written paper already says all about that, and that's what I'm gonna meet with Ms. Crossan. So, so that you can tell me, make sure I have all the current pieces of paper.
Well, All right, thank you. Any public comment from someone online? Any hands raised?
I didn't see it.
Okay, yes, for Bolden.
I had one more request related to your motions and everything else, which would be to separate that first motion, because right now it's kind of two in one. It's a little bit of a Frankenstein. I moved to introduce and have the clerk read by title and synopsis only, and it always struck me as an odd kind of combination. We don't have to deal with it right now,
Okay.
but I wanted to make sure that you've heard the request as a committee and the chair. I asked them to separate that first motion they tend to make, Terry. Sorry.
It's just me helping me hear more than, you know.
And I'm soft-spoken and speaking into the table, my apologies.
Yes.
I just want to clarify, I saw some of that conversation going by about what's on the whiteboard, that it was a visual representation of what we were discussing, based on what is in the packet. I can write that up, if you want. It would be probably easier to do that than to take a picture of the whiteboard, in terms of how readable the, font is up there. But basically, in the packet, we have a draft procedure that was provided by, Isabel, that has, number 3 being the motion to adopt legislation. And, Attorney Laner said that there could be a different option there, that we could motion to discuss the legislation instead. And then if we motion to discuss, then we would have to motion to second reading or motion or unanimous consent after the discussion. If we motion to adopt, then we have to motion to postpone. So it's the two trees. And so I hope that like helps explain that a little bit more to the public, who's like, what is going on the whiteboard?
The markers were almost out of ink, so you can really barely read it even here in the room, so I think a photo would not benefit, but we will convert this into an actual document that, if staff is able to, we'll add to the record for this meeting. Let us go to the next item. Consent agendas. So, Attorney Bennett has kindly prepared some legislation that would add the consent agenda to our regular order of business. So we can look at that text. And then I have some discussion points here on our agenda about the implications of having a consent agenda. So let's do committee members or staff or anybody have feedback on the legislation draft? So there are two.
Do I get to get feedback on this right now too, or do
Yes.
you need to explain that? Okay. I'll get feedback then. I generally like it. My only thought was, so in addressing your questions, Isabel, I'm gonna start there, I think. So should staff always be at meetings to present consent agenda items? I feel like generally speaking, none of the items, do you not wanna talk about that right now?
Well, I wanted to first look at the language of
Okay.
draft legislation. Is there any
Alright,
issue with
yeah.
that language?
I'm fine with the language. The only thing that I had that is to wonder, like, if things are removed from the consent agenda, should they all be considered right after that instead of having minutes and boards and commissions still be at the same place on either side of reports? So like, because if appointments to boards and commissions and approval of minutes are all in the consent agenda, but something get removed from the consent agenda, then I think anything removed from the consent agenda should be all considered at the same place in the agenda. Does that make sense? Do you know what I mean, Lisa?
Yes, yeah, so I think what we had envisioned at a staff level is like having those items for minutes to appear on the agenda with maybe in parentheses after that, if removed from the consent agenda.
Right, yeah,
And then, of course, if the minutes are approved as a part of the consent agenda, there wouldn't be a need
Right.
to address minutes as the header
Yeah.
on the agenda elsewhere.
yeah. I guess I would just propose to like scratch item 4 and 6 of the approval of minutes and the appointments of boards and commissions. And either add, a new item 4 saying something like, consideration of items removed from the consent agenda. Or add a new item after it reports saying the same thing, so that then if anything's, so if we decide to remove one set of minutes from the consent agenda and one board appointment from the consent agenda, we're then looking at both of those things at the same place in our agenda, where we then look to reconsider them as separate items. Instead of going, okay, well, we took these things off the consent agenda, now we're gonna do this one, and then we're gonna have these reports. And now we have to go back to this thing that we removed from the consent agenda. So that we're just like dealing with those removals in the same place instead of separating them. Like, and I don't think I have an opinion on whether we do that before reports or after reports, I just think we should do it all at the same time.
So then, like, just as an example, number 4, under order of business would become just.
Consider
Items removed, consideration of items removed from the agenda.
right, from the consent agenda, and then 5 would still be reports, and then 6 would be legislation for first readings. And 7 would be second and subsequent readings and resolutions, et cetera, et cetera. Or go from number 3, the consent agenda, to number 4, reports, to number 5, consideration of items removed from the consent agenda. Like, I have no real opinion on whether.
I
it's
prefer the latter.
I'm in favor of the latter as well.
Yeah, so that, because it might be legislation.
So Clerk Bolden has a comment.
Yes.
I have a question, which may require that somebody actually take a break right now. But have you looked at how the county actually handles their consent agendas? Or asked for guidance or input from county council people?
We did look at the, I can't recall if it was an ordinance or a resolution that was adopted, at the council staff level. But I don't know that we went beyond that and had, a discussion with, Deputy Clerk Crossley or anybody else, so.
Wouldn't have had a discussion with Deputy Clerk Crossley, but you might have had one with,
Thank you.
County Council Member
Yes.
Crossley.
County, I'm sorry, county council, president.
Yes.
President Crossley, my bad, put some
So
respect on
amended.
that one.
Correct.
I know,
Yeah, I
do you mind taking a break right now?
I can officially
Please allow me to.
take a break.
Now I get it.
President Crossley, what a surprise.
No,
Thank you
I-
for being here.
I just magically.
Yeah,
like Wonder Woman.
So, thank you, at the council level, we usually do consent agenda items. When it comes to minutes, and other things like account creation ones. And so we have had people have questions where council members have said, I kind of want to separate this from the entire motion. And we have, and so instead of having it go into, because we've also rearranged our agenda items too, to kind of make the flow of the meeting a little bit better. But and instead, what we do is, if, for example, Councilmember A decides to separate something because they want to have more questions about why this line is created, or minutes of some sort because they think there's something that they just want to say or discuss. Instead, we don't put it into like council agenda items or a separate sub area of our agenda. We just vote on the overall where a person has not separated everything. So like we will vote on everything that's not separated. And then we tackle in that next round, after we're done with that, we go into just dealing with whatever it is that is separated. So, and we'll make a motion, go from there. And then after that, we'll take roll, deal with that, and then we move on. So it's rare, I'm not gonna say rare, well, occasionally it comes up, but usually it's because they wanna have a discussion of whatever it is that's happening, and usually those discussions are brief. And usually also council members will look at the agenda too and go, oh, I got a question about that, and why is that in the, you know, consent agenda? So, it's also incumbent upon council members to do their due diligence, and do all the pre-work ahead of the meeting, so that you can have those questions asked of whatever department head or whatever it is that's in the consent agenda items that folks have questions about. So I would recommend to my colleagues, it's really upon all nine of you all to kind of do the pre-work of whatever it is that you might have with respect to your consent agenda. Again, it's like the KISS method instead of the last word, we just say silly, keep it simple, silly. But you know, it's really like trying to keep it like that because our agendas got way too long and we were talking about a lot of things. And we also had a lot of departments that were there, you know, like sitting there having to figure out if they need to flex their time because they're sitting there just waiting on something that can be done in like 2 minutes. And so the intent is to do all of this in one fell swoop, as long as no one has any kind of objections to anything. And usually we just keep it for them.
Thank you. Councilmember Daly and I have a hard stop at 1:30.
Yes,
Oh gosh, it's 1:30.
we're gonna have to
Thank you for this.
discuss consent agendas again at our next meeting.
I just wanna clarify what, Council President Crossley said in terms of what's on our sheet. So that suggestion would be number 3 would be consent agenda, and we would scratch number 4 and scratch number 6. Okay, in the consent agenda thing, if you have a small question about one item, can you just ask that question without separating it from the rest?
Yes, you can.
Great.
And usually we do that, all the time, because as presiding officer of the meeting, I will look around and say, are there any questions or comments for the consent agenda items as presented? No. And then we, you know, will go on about the day, and then usually, of course, because it's consent agenda items, as long as everybody is present and no one is virtual, you can do voice, vote, and then move on.
Okay.
Efficient.
So in this case, like parliamentarian would say, I move approval of the consent agenda, there would be a second, and then there would be a, does anybody have questions or discussion items around the consent agenda? And then take the vote.
That is correct.
Fantastic. Sounds great to me.
Okay, let us take up this discussion at our next meeting.
Did we wanna do
Is-
public comment?
Yes, is there any public comment about consent agendas? Okay, I don't see any. Let us, try to schedule, a monthly meeting time that works for everybody. And we'll have to move the other agenda items to our next meeting. So this time usually does not work for me. So I canceled something else to be here.
Well, and I clearly, like, the MPO was supposed to end at noon. And it did not today.
Yeah,
Often it's much shorter than the hour and a half that's allotted, and it was not today. So after the MPO meeting, not probably haven't been this.
so I know that, Courtney has pretty limited availability in Sydney.
It
Is
varies.
so are there, noon times, 4 p.m. times? And I know the clerk's staff and council staff probably prefers to have it within the workday.
In the workday, we prefer meetings.
During the workday,
In our office, yeah, that's the ideal.
So I could, Wednesdays are just definitely a no for me, unfortunately. Okay, I could do 4 o'clocks. I could do 4 o'clocks. Tuesdays and Thursday, 4 o'clocks are better for me, but not deal breakers.
Do noon times work with you?
12:30 on Mondays I could
Like,
do.
I should say middle of the days.
Right, it depends on the day of the weekend and the specific time, right? So like Monday at noon, no. Monday at 12:30, yes, but we have to keep it to an hour. Sorry, I know, I apologize. Tuesdays and Thursdays at noon, I could probably do. Um,
For an hour or an hour and a half.
Would a Tuesday or Thursday at 4 for an hour and a half work?
Right now, if you, because it's council processes and frequently are talking about boards and commissions, I would recommend that you not do it on Tuesdays at 4
Right,
o'clock.
yes,
Because that will bump up
apologies.
against, some other responsibilities for staff, but I think Thursdays are manageable. I don't know how it's going to address that sentence.
So that's good to know. I mean, so 4 o'clock, and 4 o'clock is just a less of the old time in my life at this point. It's like doable if that's the only option. I just much prefer the middle of the day.
So like
What-
I mean, middle of the day, I can do, but I'd really prefer to keep it to an hour if we have to do it middle of the day. Just because, right, then for me, it is an hour and a half, right, with the travel time,
Right.
and so I'm out of work for an hour and a half.
Yeah. Is your Thursday 4 okay, Sydney?
Yes.
Is your Thursday at 4 okay?
There's one day a month where it's not. It's usually the second Thursday.
Okay, how about the third Thursday?
Next month, that falls in spring break. Are people around?
I don't have to.
I am here.
I am here.
I arrived back on the 18th, so I'm here on the.
Third Thursday
Yes.
at noon? No,
Or, so are we planning on 4 to 5:30?
I would prefer
Is that?
feasible.
Oh,
Thursday at 4 to 5:30, is that feasible?
On the 19th, we don't have staff, or we're gonna be short staffed.
Okay. Okay, so maybe third
Generally
Thursday?
speaking, on Thursdays, on third
Generally
Thursdays.
speaking, on Thursdays, on third Thursdays, I think looks good. I'm trying to do a quick and dirty scan.
We
and it
could also
looks-
do fourth
Yeah, we could do
Thursdays, since it's pretty in line with today.
Yeah,
I would honestly prefer the third and a more regular thing, because as the liaison to the BZA meetings, right, and so there were a few things that I'm like, oh, I don't know, everything, but. I mean, I know I only have to go once, but, yes, that ends up just being really long, but maybe next month could be the 26th.
And then moving forward, we could do the third Thursday.
How does that feel for the clerk's office?
Checking. In the abstract, I think it's gonna be fine, and let you know if there are any major conflicts. Is that comfortable for everybody?
But our next meeting is gonna be the 26th at 4.
can't do it.
Oh.
Okay,
I'm going to Seattle.
Oh, right.
Well, what about the week before spring break, Thursday the 12th?
I can't.
That's when I have voice reduction board.
perhaps
Okay.
we do.
Like Thursday at 12 or Thursday 4?
Yeah, the 12th, March 12th is what I meant.
Oh,
And,
Yeah, that's the second Thursday, so I can't.
Okay, got it, right,
and we can't see
because you can't do, okay.
okay, what is your Friday thing at?
Institute
Noon
Academy
usually.
works. So
Okay,
you
I
guys
get
are-
conflicts.
Is it personal?
I
Is it
volunteer
self-care?
at the
That's very
community
important.
kitchen. I
Do
mean,
you
I
do
could
that
do
every
it,
week?
I could do it another time.
No, it's fine. Do you do
For a
that?
Friday cruise,
Stop. Do you do that every week?
yes.
I would like to validate your volunteer hours.
Well,
What were the other days that were good for you, Courtney, the other days at 4?
It was
Um,
Tuesday.
I mean, are we talking just for this once?
Yes.
Any day but Wednesday, I could probably make work, as long as I don't already have a meeting scheduled on that. March.
What about
How about the
Monday the
24th?
23rd?
I can't do that. I have the downtown business meeting.
the
What
24th.
did you say about the 24th?
I just said, how about the 24th? You won't have, Deputy Clerk Crossley, but
The 24th at 4?
Yes, but I will just raise, if we're gonna talk about boards and commissions, we probably should have deputy clerk cross in it.
Are we gonna talk about boards and commissions?
We can put that off another month.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanna like be aware, like,
Yeah.
if we're not going to
So-
have someone.
So we could do consent agenda, the council member sponsorship.
And revisit the, first reading
Yes,
thing.
and that would probably take an hour and a half right there.
Right there.
There we go.
So March 24th at 4 PM, and then starting in April, we're gonna do the
Third
third
Thursday,
Thursday.
At 4. Okay,
and that works
And-
for everybody.
and the clerk is gonna post those, and so I don't have to put them on my calendar because y'all are usually really efficient with that. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's third Thursday in April is the 16th. Okay, it is 1:30.
Yeah.
Oh, super.
All right, thank you all. We are adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.